system processed over 3 million formal salary payments. The index shows that the average take-home salary was slightly over 12,000 Rand per month for the year, except in December when bonuses were paid when the average was over 13,000 Rand. Now, on average, take-home salaries increased by 6.7% last year, down from 8.8% in 2014. In real terms, salaries were 2% higher. This means that salaries beat the average inflation rate of 4.6%. The index concludes that despite real personal income tax hikes and low employment growth in the formal sector, employees are still receiving salary increases after tax and deductions. Well, to make sense of it, Mike Schuessler from economist.co.za joins us now. Mike, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
So you look at the survey findings and it basically says that salary increases have beaten inflation. But on the ground, the situation seems to be much more dire than that in terms of disposable income of the consumer. Where's the disconnect, if there is one?
Well, I don't think there's really that much of a disconnect, Devin. I think if you look at it, yes, car sales are down. Yes, home sales are down. But if you look at the rest of the retail, other than furniture, if you look at the rest of the retail sales, they actually grew between 3 and 4% for the last few months that we have data on. And that says to you, people have more disposable income. The other thing is that at the same time, we've been paying back some of our debt. So despite the horror stories of South Africans in huge debt and huge problems, if you look at the National Credit Regulator data, if you look at the Reserve Bank data, the official data sources, and even from the courts, yes, there are thousands of people in trouble still, but the numbers have actually come down. And I think that says that the people that are in jobs are able to pay their debts. Some of them are able to pay them earlier, and others are spending as they would normally, and they're spending more on things. I think people feel down for various reasons, but the consumer that is working in the formal sector, that employee is doing rather okay. Maybe not in all sectors, but the person in the middle, the typical person, has outperformed the average person, which is just a combine. There may be some people on the bottom that haven't performed as well, and some people in the top, sort of middle, top part that didn't get sort of the bonuses that they were hoping for. But overall, I think if I look at last year, both pensions and salaries did very, very well.
All right, fair enough. So we understand you're talking about the income in this formal sector. Let's stick with those guys. And ask the question, what happens in a few weeks from now, even this week, when we have that potential interest rate hike, and then we possibly even have potential taxes coming at the budget in February? How does that change the situation?
Well, the first few months of this year, I think, will be okay. I think the one thing is that we know what's happened here is that this income that we're looking at from BankservAfrica is after taxes. So already we've seen some sort of tax rise last year, and I think there'll be more this year. But the tax rise won't be an announced one. It'll be just the brackets that aren't shifted quite as much as for inflation. That's first of all. The second thing that we must remember is that part of last year we had very low inflation, which gave people a lot of extra income because your petrol price actually went down. And that made us feel richer than we are. But we all know that that has come to an end. Although oil prices are falling, the big fall in the Rand. So yes, the first few months, I think, say January to March, April, will still be similar to what we had last year. I think after that it gets interesting, and I think that's when the tougher times come. We expect the drought to have a big impact on inflation. I expect petrol prices to start going up. I expect other things to go up because of the Rand's fall. That always takes there's a bit of a lag. And especially the last quarter of last year, the Rand fell a lot. So certainly from that point of view, and also I think we keep forgetting that the pensioners did very well last year, 4% above inflation. This year, with the markets not having performed as well, I think that section of the population is also going to come under pressure. And I think by the end of this year, if not, then certainly by the beginning of next year, I think we'll see a very different story. We may still just beat inflation, but certainly no longer by the 2-3% that we had in the last 2 years.
All right, it's interesting you talk about the good news for pensioners, certainly in the last few months. It's interesting it comes at a time when there's such controversy around the new tax laws. What do you make of them?
Well, I am no tax expert, but I think we need to protect people spending their pensions just willy-nilly. And that's a very good thing. I think most countries in the world have some form of tax law that says you can take some of your taxes from your pension, but I don't think anybody allows you to take everything. And in South Africa, there was one set that allowed you to do that, and that was certain provident funds. And that has come to an end now. I can understand that people are cross, but at the end of the day, it's about a pension, is about paying you into the future. It's not the idea that you go and build a new house with it. It's not the idea that you take all this money and you pay off all your debts and then you go and buy a franchise. The idea is that you take some of the money out, pay your debts, maybe do one or two things with it, but ultimately that the majority of your pension money pays you an income as you get older.
Mike Schisler from economist.co.za, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Devin.